Hola, in this video we're going to talk about the numbers 0 through 99 in Spanish. Hablamos de los números 0 hasta 99 en español. Empezamos con 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and now do notice with the last few numbers, numbers 16, 17, 18, and 19, there are actually two ways to say them, and two ways to write them, rather. So with 16, the one way is to say veintiséis, which literally means 10 and 6, because that's what 16 is 10 plus 6. But there is another way to write it, which is like this. 16, 17, 18, 19. Here I want to show you a little pattern you can use to remember how to do the other way of writing the numbers 16 through 19. So you start off with the number 16. You see it's 16. Again, that's literally 10 and 6. What you do is you take that Z. The Z ends up turning into a C. They actually have a similar pronunciation. The Y turns into a letter I because they also have similar pronunciations. And you push everything together. So that gives us then veintiséis. Now another rule you have to remember is with any of these other ways of writing numbers, if it ends in an S or an N, then you need to have an accent on that last major vowel. So in this case, an accent would go on top of the E, veintiséis. If you don't have that accent there, then the pronunciation would be veintiséis. It's veintiséis. So that's why we have an accent on that vowel. But that's only if it ends in an S or an N. Any of the other numbers, it doesn't happen. Continuamos. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Now with those last numbers, there's also two different ways to write them. So for example, you have 21, 21, which literally means 20 and 1. But there is a second way to write it for the numbers 21 all the way through 29. 21, or 21, sometimes it'll look like that with that accent, depending on whether it's in front of a masculine object or whether it's just the number itself. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. There's only a very slightly different pronunciation with these numbers, but they're very similar. And let's use 21 as an example to see the process of how to write the numbers 21 through 29 in that different way. So what we do in this case is that we are going to eliminate the E at the end of veinte, and we change the Y into an I. Because in Spanish they have a similar pronunciation. 21, The letter I by itself in Spanish is pronounced E. And then we crunch all of this together with taking the letter E away and changing the Y to an I. So then we get veintiuno. So it does have slightly different pronunciation. Instead of veintiuno, it's veintiuno. Now remember, any of these numbers, if they end in either an S or an N, you need to put an accent over that major vowel at the end. Now in this case, that's not what happens, so we don't need to add an accent. But if we imagine we are using the number 22, that will become veintidós. Veintidós does end in an S. And remember, it also happens with numbers that end in N. So we need an accent on that last vowel, veintidós. Otherwise, it'd be pronounced veintidos. But it's veintidós. Continuamos. Treinta. 31, just to show you that when you say any number above, with 31 and above, it follows that similar pattern of the tens and then the 1 column. So to say 31, you have 31, which literally means 30 and 1. And for the rest of the numbers on up from here, that is the only way to write them. There isn't a second way. Cuarenta is the word for 40. So then if you want to say something like 45, it would be 45. Notice the quad, which is somewhat similar to cuatro. Cincuenta, as in cinco. Sesenta, and then setenta. Notice the very slight difference. Sesenta for 60, as in seis, sesenta. And then setenta for 70, as in siete, setenta. Ochenta, noventa. Right? And then this slide here explains how when you have a 1 at the end of the numbers, it's not always written as uno. Sometimes it changes. Right? So the word uno in that number changes depending on whether the number is put in front of a masculine object or a feminine object. So for example, if we have counting a book, say one book, un libro, as opposed to uno libro. You do not say uno libro. Uno is just the number 1 completely by itself if you're counting. But if you want to say one book, un libro, because libro is masculine. Una mochila. You use the word una as opposed to un or uno if it's in front of a feminine object. Mochila is a feminine object. It would be la mochila. So we have una mochila. And it doesn't just go for the number 1 itself. Any other numbers that end in 1 do the same change. The only exception being 11, and you can see the list over here, some other numbers where it happens. So if we want to say 21 students, 21 estudiantes. And remember about the accent that goes on top of the U in 21. But if we say personas, it'd be 21 personas, because personas is feminine. Regardless of if the people are masculine or feminine or anything, the word personas is feminine, so we say 21 personas. I'm going to say 41 dogs, 41 perros, because perro is masculine, and then 41 computers, 41 computadoras, because computadoras is feminine. Alright, so let's do a little bit of practice. You can see these examples here. And we need to take a moment to write down how you would say these numbers in Spanish. Now go ahead and press pause on the video so you can take some time to work, and in a second I'll show the answers. Alright, so let's go over the answers here. Letra A, catorce. Letra B, 19. Remember, there are 2 spellings of it. Letra C, veintiocho, again, there are two spellings. Letra D, 47. Remember, any number that is above 30 does that pattern of tens and ones. So to say 47, you say 40 and 7. Letra E, 64. Careful with whether you had an S or a T there. Sesenta y cuatro for 60, similar to seis. 80, 92. Gracias por mirar.